Hi, my name is Rena. I drove 14 hours straight to get here. No sleep, no stops, just gas station coffee and a windshield full of rain. When I pulled into the driveway of the house I grew up in, I didn't recognize it at first. New shutters, new mailbox, a wind chime on the porch I'd never seen before. But the smell, that old oak and damp grass, and something faintly chemical, that was the same. I wasn't supposed to be here. Nobody invited me. Nobody even knew I was coming. But 3 days ago, my younger sister Noelle sent me a voicemail at 2 in the morning. She didn't say a word, just breathing, shaky and wet, like someone trying not to cry while pressing a phone against their mouth. Then the line went dead. I played it 11 times before I packed a bag. And what I found when I walked through that front door, it wasn't just a bad night. It was a locked bedroom, a man's voice saying calm down, and my sister on the floor with bruises she couldn't explain. So I did the only thing I could think of. I called the police. But what came after that call, what crawled out of the silence this family had been keeping, that's the part no one was ready for. I need to back up. I left home when I was 19. Not dramatically, not with a fight or a slammed door. I just stopped coming back. It happened gradually, the way distance does when no one's working to close it. After Dad died, cancer, slow and mean, the house changed. Mom changed. She got quieter, smaller, like grief had compressed her into something you could overlook. She stopped calling me by my full name, stopped calling me at all some weeks. Then she met Dale. Dale Prescott was the kind of man who filled a room the moment he entered it. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a laugh that rattled the windows and a handshake that made everyone feel chosen. He coached youth baseball. He volunteered at the food bank every Thanksgiving. Neighbors loved him. The church loved him. Mom loved him in the way that lonely people love the first person who makes them feel seen again. They married fast. 8 months after their first date, Dale moved in. I was 21, already living 3 states away in a studio apartment in Richmond, working double shifts at a clinic reception desk. Noelle was 14. She stayed. At first, things seemed fine. Mom sounded lighter on the phone. Noelle texted me pictures of the kitchen Dale had repainted, the dog he'd brought home, a golden retriever named Biscuit. Life looked normal. Life looked good. But I noticed small things, the kind you file away and tell yourself don't mean anything. Noelle's texts got shorter. Her replies came later and later. When I'd call, she'd say she was busy with homework or tired from soccer. Normal teenager stuff. At least that's what I told myself. Then the calls stopped altogether. For almost a year, I heard from my sister through Mom only. She's doing great. She made honor roll. She's been quiet, but you know how girls get at that age. Every answer came wrapped in reassurance I hadn't asked for. And every time there was Dale's voice somewhere in the background, friendly, warm, always present. Then 3 days ago, that voicemail, I stood in the driveway for a long time after I turned the engine off. The rain had softened to a mist. The porch light was on, that same warm yellow it had always been, but the glow felt wrong, like a decoration hiding something rotten underneath. I could see movement through the living room curtains. Shadows. The flicker of a television. I grabbed my bag and walked to the door. My old key still worked. The lock turned with a familiar click that made my chest ache. Inside, the house was warmer than I expected. There was music playing. Something soft and instrumental, like the soundtrack to a life that was performing normalcy. The hallway smelled like pot roast and lavender air freshener. 2 scents that didn't belong together, but had been forced into the same space. Mom was in the kitchen. She stood at the counter slicing bread, her back to me. She was thinner than I remembered. Her hair had gone mostly gray, pulled into a braid that hung like a question mark against her spine. Mom. She turned. Her face didn't light up. It tightened, then rearranged itself into something that looked like a smile, but landed closer to panic. Rena? What are you doing here? Not how are you? Not I missed you. Just the question. Like I was a problem that had shown up without an appointment. I came to see Noelle, I said. She's upstairs, studying. Mom wiped her hands on a towel, folding it twice, precisely, the way she does when she's stalling. You should have called first. I tried. You didn't pick up. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Behind her, footsteps, heavy ones. Dale appeared from the den, beer in hand, wearing that same wide grin he wore in every family photo Mom had sent me over the years. Well, the prodigal daughter. He spread his arms like I was supposed to walk into them. This is a surprise. Good surprise, I hope, I said, keeping my voice flat. Always. He took a sip. His eyes didn't match his smile. They scanned me the way you'd size up someone who just walked into a negotiation you weren't prepared for. I dropped my bag by the stairs. I'll go say hi to Noelle. She's probably asleep by now, Dale said quickly. School night, you know. I looked at the clock on the wall. 7:45. She sleeps early now, Mom added. And the way she said it, too fast, too rehearsed, made my stomach twist. I climbed the stairs anyway. The hallway was dim. Just a nightlight plugged into the outlet near the bathroom. Noelle's door was closed. I knocked softly. No answer. I knocked again. Noelle? It's me. It's Rena. Silence. Then a rustling sound. Then her voice, barely above a whisper. Go away. Not angry. Not annoyed. Scared. The kind of scared that hides inside small words and hopes you don't hear it. I pressed my hand against the door. I'm not going anywhere. I just want to see you. A long pause. Then the lock clicked open. She stood in the gap of the doorway, half her face visible, one eye swollen and dark underneath, the bruise fresh enough that no amount of concealer could hide it completely. She was wearing a long-sleeve shirt in the middle of June. Her hair was pulled back tight, and she looked 10 pounds lighter than the last photo Mom had sent. Hey, Elle, I said softly. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just stood there, looking at me like she was deciding whether I was real. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I stepped forward, slowly, like approaching something fragile. What happened to your face? Her hand went to her cheek automatically, pressing against the bruise like she'd forgotten it was there. I fell, hit the bathroom counter. The words came out like a recording, flat, practiced. I'd heard that tone before, in patients at the clinic, in women who sat in waiting rooms rehearsing their explanations. Noelle, don't, she said. And the crack in her voice split something open inside me. I went back downstairs. Mom and Dale were seated in the living room, television on, everything arranged to look perfectly ordinary. I sat across from them. My hands were steady, but my jaw was tight enough to ache. She has a bruise on her face, I said. Mom's eyes darted to Dale. Just for a second. Just long enough. She fell, Mom said. She told you. She told me what she's been told to say. Dale set his beer down on the side table with exaggerated calm. Rena, I know it's been a while since you've been around. Things look different when you're on the outside looking in, but Noelle's going through a phase. Hormones, school pressure, all of it. She's clumsy. She bruises easy. Ask her doctor. I'm asking you. His jaw shifted. The friendly mask stayed on, but the edges thinned. I think you're reading into something that isn't there. You've always been the dramatic one in this family. I looked at Mom. She was staring at the carpet. Mom. Nothing. Mom, look at me. She lifted her eyes, and what I saw in them wasn't confusion. It was recognition. The kind that comes with knowing something awful and choosing every single day to look the other way. She fell, Mom said again. But this time her voice cracked on the last word. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the guest room, which used to be my bedroom before Dale converted it into something that looked like it belonged in a furniture catalog. Everything beige, everything neutral, everything stripped of anything that was mine. Even the window faced a different direction now, or at least it felt that way. At 1 a.m, I heard movement, footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, measured. They passed my door, paused, then continued toward Noelle's room. I heard a knock, soft, then a door opening. I was on my feet before I could think. I moved into the hallway just in time to see Dale standing at the threshold of Noelle's room. His back was to me. He hadn't gone inside yet. What are you doing? I said, louder than I intended. He turned slowly. In his hand was a glass of water. Bringing your sister something to drink. She gets nightmares. Wakes up dehydrated. His tone was patient, like he was explaining something to a child. I stepped between him and the door. I'll take it. He held the glass for a beat too long before handing it over. His fingers brushed mine. Cold. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. Then he walked back down the hallway without another word. I stood at Noelle's door, gripping that glass until my knuckles went white. When I opened the door, she was sitting up in bed, arms wrapped around her knees, shaking. He wasn't going to do anything, she whispered. He just checks on me sometimes. At 1 a.m, she didn't answer. I set the glass on her nightstand and sat on the edge of her bed. Elle, I need you to tell me the truth. Whatever it is, I'll believe you. Her chin trembled, her eyes filled. But she shook her head. You'll leave again. Everyone leaves. And then it gets worse. That sentence broke me in a way I wasn't prepared for. Not the words themselves, but the way she said them, like she'd calculated this outcome 100 times, and every version ended the same way. I'm not leaving, I said. Not this time. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she reached under her pillow and pulled out a phone. Not her regular phone. An old one. Cracked screen. No case. She unlocked it and handed it to me without a word. On the screen was a folder labeled Proof. Inside were photographs. Bruises on her arms, her ribs, her thighs. Dates written in the corner of each one, handwritten captions underneath. Bathroom door. After Tuesday. He said sorry this time. There were dozens. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. How long? I asked. Since the second month he moved in. She was 14. I called the police at 2:17 in the morning. I sat on Noelle's bedroom floor with the door locked and my arm around her while I gave the dispatcher our address. I told them my sister had been assaulted. I told them there was photographic evidence. I told them the man responsible was downstairs. The dispatcher's voice was calm and procedural. Units are on their way, ma'am. Stay where you are. We stayed. 12 minutes. That's how long it took. 12 minutes of sitting in that room, hearing the television still murmuring downstairs, knowing Dale was probably in his recliner finishing his beer, completely unaware that the walls he'd built were about to collapse around him. When the police arrived, they didn't knock gently. 3 officers came through the front door with the kind of presence that doesn't allow for negotiation. I heard Dale's voice first, calm, controlled. Officers, what's going on? Is there a problem? Then Mom's, panicked. What is happening? Rena, what did you do? I came downstairs with Noelle behind me. She was clutching the old phone like a lifeline. One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes and a firm voice, knelt in front of her. Can I see what you have there, sweetheart? Noelle handed it over. Dale was still talking, still performing. This is a misunderstanding. My stepdaughter has a history of anxiety. She makes things up. Her therapist can confirm she's been struggling with attention-seeking behavior. The female officer scrolled through the photos. Her expression didn't change, but her posture did. She stood up straighter. She looked at Dale with the kind of steady quiet that precedes a storm. Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside with me. For what? His voice finally cracked. On the word of a teenager with a broken phone? On the word of evidence, sir. Step outside. Mom stood in the kitchen doorway, hands pressed to her mouth. She looked at me like I'd set the house on fire. You did this, she whispered. You came back and destroyed everything. No, I said. He destroyed everything. I just turned the lights on. They took Dale that night, handcuffs and all. He didn't resist, not physically. But his eyes, when they led him past me, they held a promise. A threat, shaped like patience, like a man who believed he'd talk his way out of this too. The next week was the hardest of my life. Mom didn't speak to me for 3 days. She moved through the house like a ghost, opening and closing cabinets, washing dishes that were already clean, folding laundry with trembling hands. I stayed anyway. Noelle started talking on day 4. Not a flood, not a confession, just pieces. Small sentences dropped between silences, like someone testing the ground before putting their full weight on it. He started with comments. About my body, about how I was developing. Then it was touching, always accidental, always with an apology that sounded like a compliment. Then it wasn't accidental anymore. She told me how he'd come to her room at night, how he said it was their secret, how he told her that if she said anything, Mom would fall apart, that the family would be destroyed, that it would be her fault. And I believed him, she said, her voice so quiet I had to lean forward to hear, because Mom was finally happy. And I didn't want to be the one who took that away. I held her while she cried. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. I didn't say it was over, because I wasn't sure yet. I just held on and let her know that the weight she'd been carrying alone now had somewhere else to land. On day 6, Officer Brandt called. She'd been assigned to the case and had been thorough. They'd pulled Dale's records. Before moving to our town, before Mom, before us, he'd worked as a youth mentor in Greensboro, North Carolina. He left the program abruptly in 2019. No explanation, no formal complaint. just gone. We're reaching out to the families from that program, Brant told me. These patterns don't start at one house and end at another. By the end of the second week, 2 other women had come forward. Both had been minors when Dale mentored them. Both had stories that echoed Noelle's so closely it made me sick. The comments first, then the touching, then the escalation, then the silence. Mom finally broke on a Tuesday evening. I was making dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and jarred sauce, when she appeared in the doorway. Her face looked like it had aged a decade. She held a stack of papers in her hand, and for a moment I thought it was another bill or insurance form. Then she set them on the table, and I saw the header. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I filed this morning, she said. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to scream at her. Where was this 6 months ago? A year ago? When Noelle was 14 and terrified and living down the hall from her abuser while you made pot roast and pretended the world was fine? But I didn't say any of that. Because the woman standing in front of me wasn't the same woman who had chosen comfort over truth. She was someone in the middle of waking up. And waking up is its own kind of violence. I knew, she said. Her voice barely held together. Not the specifics. But I knew something was wrong. I saw how she flinched. I saw the way she stopped eating dinner with us. I saw the long sleeves in summer. And I told myself it was something else. Anything else. Because admitting it meant admitting, I brought him into this house. I let him in. I let him near my child. She sat down heavily. I am the reason she was hurt. I sat across from her. You didn't hurt her. But you didn't protect her either. And she needed you to. I know. So what now? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Now I show up. Even if she doesn't want me to. Even if it takes years. The trial came fast. Faster than I expected. The prosecution had built a case that was devastating in its clarity. Noelle's photographs. The testimonies from Greensboro. Text messages recovered from Dale's phone, where he'd told Noelle to delete their conversations. Digital forensics showed he'd been monitoring her location, reading her messages, isolating her from friends. The courtroom was small and cold. Dale sat in a navy suit, clean-shaven, posture perfect. He looked like a man attending a church board meeting. His lawyer objected often, smiled politely, called everything circumstantial. Then Noelle took the stand. She wore a white blouse and kept her hands flat on the table in front of her, like she needed to feel something solid beneath her. Her voice was quiet at first, but it didn't waver. He told me no one would believe me because I was just a kid. He said I'd ruin the family. He said my mom would hate me. He said my sister left because she didn't care enough to stay. She paused and looked at me, but she came back. She came back without anyone asking her to, and she believed me the second she saw my face. The prosecutor played back text messages on a screen. One read, "Delete this thread. If anyone sees it, you know what happens." Another, "You wanted this. Don't pretend you didn't." The jury didn't need long. 4 hours. Dale was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 42 years. No possibility of parole for 25. When the bailiff put the cuffs on him, Dale looked at me one last time. He didn't smirk. He didn't threaten. He just looked hollow, like a man who'd spent his whole life wearing masks and now had nothing left underneath. Mom stood in the gallery. She didn't try to speak to him. She didn't cry. She watched them lead him out, and then she turned to Noelle and opened her arms. Noelle didn't move for a long time, maybe 10 seconds, maybe 30. Then she stepped forward, slowly, carefully, like someone testing a bridge they weren't sure would hold. And when Mom's arms closed around her, she finally let go. Outside the courthouse, the November air hit sharp and clean. Noelle stopped on the steps and breathed in like it was the first time her lungs had fully expanded in years. "I want to change my last name," she said. "Back to Garrett. Dad's name." "Okay," I said. "And I don't want to go back to that house." "But won't." Mom stood behind us, hands in her coat pockets, looking at the sky like she was trying to remember what it felt like to stand outside without pretending. We moved into a rental 2 towns over. It was small. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a stove that clicked 3 times before lighting, and a bathroom with a window that didn't close all the way. But it was ours. No shadows in the corners. No footsteps at 1 in the morning. No rehearsed explanations for bruises that shouldn't exist. The first week, we didn't talk much. We ate simple meals. We watched television without really watching. Noelle slept with her door open for the first time since I'd been back, and that alone felt like a revolution. Mom started therapy. She didn't announce it. I just noticed the appointment cards on the kitchen counter, Tuesday afternoons, a name and address I didn't recognize. She never talked about what they discussed, but she started doing something she hadn't done in years. She started asking Noelle questions. Not the surface kind, real ones. How are you feeling today? Not fine. Actually feeling. Did you sleep okay? Is there anything you need from me? At first, Noelle didn't answer. Or she'd shrug and say, I'm okay in that automatic way survivors do. But over time, the answers got longer. I slept 3 hours. I had a dream about the house. I don't want to go back to school yet. And Mom would listen. Really listen. Not to fix, not to explain, not to redirect. Just to hear. One night in early December, I came home from the grocery store and found them at the kitchen table. Noelle was drawing, charcoal on thick paper, something dark and abstract. Mom sat across from her, not watching, not commenting, just being there. A candle burned between them. The radio played something low and warm. Nobody looked up when I came in. Nobody needed to. The room held what it held, and it was enough. I stood in the doorway for a moment, groceries in both arms, and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Not happiness exactly. Something quieter than that. Something steadier. A few weeks later, Officer Brandt called to tell me that a third woman from the Greensboro program had come forward. She was 26 now. She'd seen a news article about Dale's conviction and recognized his face. She said she didn't think anyone would ever stop him, Brandt told me. She said your sister's testimony gave her the courage to speak. That night, I told Noelle. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the charcoal smudges on her fingers. I didn't do it for anyone else, she finally said. I did it because I was tired of being quiet. That's exactly why it matters. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in months, something in her eyes had shifted. Not healed, not fixed, but open. Like a window someone had finally stopped boarding shut. On Christmas morning, we didn't have a tree. We didn't have presents wrapped in shiny paper or stockings hung above a fireplace we didn't have. But Mom made pancakes, the real kind, from scratch. The kind Dad used to make on Saturday mornings with too much vanilla and never enough syrup. Noelle ate 2 plates. I ate 3. We sat at that tiny kitchen table in a rented apartment above a hardware store, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the silence between us wasn't hiding anything. It was just silence. The kind you can rest inside. After breakfast, Noelle reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She slid it across the table to me. I unfolded it. In her handwriting, careful and deliberate, it said, "You came back. That was enough." I didn't cry. Not right then. I tucked the note into my wallet, next to the photo of Dad I'd carried since I was 12. 2 pieces of paper. 2 reminders that belief is sometimes the only thing standing between someone and the dark. We weren't fixed. We weren't whole. We were 3 women in a too small apartment with a stove that needed coaxing and a bathroom window that let in the cold. But we were done pretending. We were done being quiet. And we were done letting anyone else decide what our family looked like. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life isn't a stranger. It's the one who sits at your dinner table, who knows your routines, who earns everyone's trust so thoroughly that when the truth finally surfaces, nobody wants to believe it. And sometimes the person who saves you isn't a hero with a plan. It's just someone who shows up, who listens, and who refuses to look away. If you've ever seen something that didn't feel right and stayed silent, I understand. Silence is a survival instinct. But if you're ready, your voice might be the one that breaks the cycle for someone who's been waiting in the dark. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and stay with us. We have more stories coming. Stories about courage, about truth, and about the people brave enough to speak when the world tells them to be quiet.